So, I finally decided to try out Destiny 2 for the first time, and coming off of BioWare's now dead Anthem, this was an interesting experiment. And in today's video, I'll be going through whether my experience in this king of looter shooters was worth the time and money spent, and if you, like me, should give it a go in the year 2023. Now, as I mentioned, as I recently reviewed Anthem, I was looking forward to trying this game out, as I've heard mostly only good things about Destiny 2. However, I have to say that as much as I like first-person shooters, I am a story buff at heart, meaning that no matter how excellent and fun a game is in terms of gameplay, if it doesn't have a good story, then it all falls apart for me. Which should be pretty evident considering how I've mainly covered story-based games on this channel, such as the Mass Effect games. Now, considering that Destiny 2 is a sci-fi shooter just like Mass Effect, this game should by all means be right in my ballpark. So hey, let's start by talking about the story right off the bat. And well, a Destiny 2 story is interesting. To be completely frank with you, I only have a gist of what's going on in the story, and I still don't really have the full picture even after 20 hours of playtime.
That's quite big.
What I'm trying to say here is that Destiny 2's story is confusing. However, this is not a fault of the story itself. You see, when I jumped into Destiny 2 as a completely new player, I expected a somewhat decent storyline that took me from the starting events of the game to the current state of the story with the Lightfall DLC. And in the starting hours of the game, that seems to be the case as you progress through a questline that takes you to the Tower, which is the main hub of the game. However, after that, the pacing of the story gets thrown out the window. This is because after reaching the tower, the game opens up and introduces you to a bunch of new activities to do. But Destiny 2 never tells you where to go after that in order to experience the story, and I'll admit that I spent over an hour running around the main hub trying to figure out what to do. And after getting fed up with that, I simply googled where to go and found out that Europa was the next place to visit. However, after reaching the new area and after watching the introductory cutscene to Europa, I realized that I was missing crucial context for whatever was going on in the story. And so I googled again and came to find out that this was because the first 4 major storylines of Destiny 2, that being the Red War, the Curse of Osiris, Warmind, and Forsaken, had been vaulted, meaning that you can't access any of these campaigns anymore, and so you can't experience the story in its complete form. For Destiny veterans, this is probably not that big of an issue, but it does represent a major problem for people like myself, because I still don't really understand the context of certain cutscenes and dialogue from seemingly important characters. So whenever I got to some of the bigger moments of Destiny 2 so far, there has been literally zero emotional payoff because I just have no emotional connection to any of these characters. Now, as I understand it, Bungie has been removing major campaigns year after year because, according to them, Destiny 2 has grown to a point to where it's too large to efficiently update and maintain. And I mean, I understand why they're doing it, but this has also created another problem in of itself where a lot of new players have been struggling with understanding and caring about the story and its characters. And if you want people to fall in love and care about your fictional universe, then that is a huge problem. Now, at this point, you're probably going, all right, we get it, the story is confusing, so what about everything else? Well, let's talk about the general gameplay loop. So as I mentioned earlier, Destiny 2 is a looter shooter, meaning that most of the stuff you will be doing is, well, shooting bad guys and looting stuff. And this is obviously the area where Destiny 2 truly shines, because the gameplay is really outstanding. Now, while the gunplay isn't necessarily the greatest of all time, it's still solid and most weapons are pretty fun to use. Sound effects pack a solid punch and the gameplay is just smooth as butter as you mow down legions of bad guys with your weapon of choice. Not to mention that there are enough weapons to last you a lifetime, with more getting introduced with every major content patch. And while there is a lot of loot you can find throughout loot chests and whatnot, it still doesn't feel like it's shoved in your face, and most of the gear I've found so far have been useful to me in some way. Ooh, first loot, yes please. It's purple, so I'm just gonna get, oh, legendary, yeah, of course it's gonna be better. Now, as much as I enjoy the different weapons and gear you can use, I'm honestly absolutely in love with the different class abilities. As I've been spending my time as a warlock, I can only speak for this class for now, but as of this moment, I just can't get over how fun most of your abilities are. As a warlock, you start off with the void abilities and later on you start unlocking subclasses. And as much as void is a fun element, my favorite subclasses are definitely Dawnblade and Stormcaller. These subclasses giving you access to fire and electricity powers. Oh, I love it! There's just something so incredibly satisfying in melting your enemies by throwing out the miniature sun or blasting them with a lightning Kamehameha. And the great thing is that no matter what your gear level is at, most of your abilities feel really powerful, not to mention your ultimates that are extremely strong and are absolute lifesavers. And you want to know the best part? Using your abilities never gets old. The graphical effects and sound effects are just so satisfying, and if I could hazard a guess, I'd say that this is one of the main reasons why a lot of fans can't stop playing the game. Another highlight for me so far has been the boss fights. Now, there's a huge amount of bosses in Destiny 2, and I haven't encountered that many, but from the few encounters I have, I'd say that most of them strikes a pretty good balance in being difficult enough, but not to the point where they feel unfair. Some bosses are pretty cookie cutter, and some have some more interesting mechanics. And at the end of the day, the loot you get from bosses usually feels earned, which is really nice. When it comes to puzzle gameplay, so far I've only encountered a few puzzles, and I assume that there's more to come, but as this is the case, I can't really say that much more about puzzle mechanics. However, I could really go on and on about how fun the gameplay is in general, and it's even better when you're playing with people. Now, as I don't really have any friends on Steam, I was mostly playing by myself. But whenever I got grouped up with other players for different missions, I'd say that these are the moments that I'll remember Destiny 2 for. And this is mostly due to the, again, smooth and stable experience whenever you're grouped up with other people. Not once have I experienced any form of lag, crash, or game-breaking technical issue that made me want to stop playing. It's quite the opposite, actually. Because my experience has been extremely stable so far, it just makes me want to keep playing the game. Case in point, Bungie has really succeeded by not only capturing you in Destiny 2's gameplay loop, but actually having you enjoy it as well. Maybe this is because I'm a new player, or maybe that's just the nature of the game, but at no point have I felt like I actually needed to do something in order to keep playing the game, as you can choose to take up any of the base content or play through the subsequent expansions whenever you want, in whatever order you want. Again, I like the option to do this, it's just unfortunate that the older content isn't available anymore. And yes, you have to pay real money to unlock the DLCs and expansions, but it isn't something that you have to do to enjoy the base version of Destiny 2. And hell, the base version is literally free to play, so I'd definitely say that you'd get several hours worth of gameplay for free. That said, I've only managed to play through the first chapter of Beyond Light and the beginning hours of the Witch Queen, and so far, yes, I'd say that the standard price of $60 for the Legacy Collection on Steam is worth getting because of the sheer amount of content you get with each expansion. Saying that, I highly suggest you try out the free base version first to see if you enjoy the gameplay loop and check out a compilation of cinematics for what happens up until Beyond Light. And this is especially important if you're a story type player. Trust me, you'll thank me later. But that's about it. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And have a great day. Mr. Olton, signing out.